and welcome to the Total Soccer Show. My name is Daryl Grove, and I'm joined by a man with a startled look on his face. His name is Taylor Rockwell. Hello.
Hello. I know I wasn't here yesterday, but I feel like I haven't gotten like that condition to it. That was a big one. That was a big hello.
That was a big hello.
Oh, and also hello.
Hello to you too. We are here to talk Champions League.
I'm still reeling a little bit.
We're not, well, much like Tottenham.
Yeah, there you go.
We're not going to talk every single game. We didn't watch every single game.
We did
because
not.
we are but two men and we only had one afternoon. But what we did watch is Tottenham-Barcelona. We saw Barcelona win 4-2 at Wembley.
That we did, my friend.
It was a weirdly enjoyable game in that there was lots of very skillful moments, a few great goals. But it didn't feel like a high-end technical game, if that makes sense. Or I wouldn't call it like end-to-end action. Is that fair?
I mean, I think the commentators for like a good 10-minute period in the first half and also in the second half, I think we're trying to establish that narrative. Yeah. But I'm with you.
Like, this is thrilling.
It
wasn't really, was it?
No, I mean, there were definitely moments when it was end-to-end and a little bit open, but I think for the most part, it was end-to-end because it felt like Tottenham were kind of forced into direct play.
Yeah.
And then Barcelona were happy to let them play those direct balls and then immediately counterattack them.
So there is a man that I think you and I both believe is responsible for that direct play, and his name is not on the score sheet.
It is not.
So Barcelona's scorers were Coutinho, Rakitic, Leo Messi, and then Leo Messi again. Man who's not on the score sheet but was heavily involved, Luis Suarez.
Yep.
So obviously people will be thinking of the two leaves, the two times he left the ball to run to Messi and fooled like everybody in a Tottenham shirt, fans included, I think.
Not Messi though.
But weirdly, not Messi, but weirdly the more important part for us is what Suarez was doing defensively.
Absolutely.
I think he set the tone and set the shape of this entire game.
I mean, you could say, like, which is amazing to say given that Barcelona scored inside the first 2 minutes, but inside the first 30 seconds, it's Luis Suarez sprinting forward to kind of lead the press. You can see him waving everybody forward. They're not all quite there, and you can see a little bit of frustration. That frustration is gone immediately because then he recognizes another opportunity to sprint over, cut off a passing option. He does that, and Tottenham are forced into going long again within the first 30 seconds. And from there, that's basically the game, is Luis Suarez sprinting and cutting off options and causing problems and just putting a little bit of a presence in that makes Tottenham players second guess or third guess sometimes. And a lot of times it led to mistakes.
And you said press, and I agree that there was something of a press, but it's not in a like knock you down, win the ball back kind of press. It's a cut off the angles press, don't give you anywhere to play this ball kind of press. And it really frustrated Tottenham. We saw multiple times Alderweireld or Trippier looking upfield, looking for a pass, and everything was closed down.
I want to call it like chaos momentum of like, it's not, you're right, it's not trying to like press and everybody gets in a position where they win the ball back, but it sort of is like Suarez starts it and maybe you've got Alderweireld playing the ball to Davinson Sanchez. Suarez puts a little bit of pressure on and maybe that pass is just a little bit harder or a little bit off of where he wanted to go because there's that little bit of pressure.
And actually that specifically happened a lot with Davinson Sanchez. Yeah.
But then Suarez continues to run and suddenly Davinson Sanchez feels that pressure. So maybe he plays the ball a little bit faster than he wanted and it goes out wide and suddenly that ball gets there a little like, and it just kind of picks up and eventually it leads to Tottenham playing an erratic ball forward or being dispossessed or playing it out of bounds or what have you. But that's what I mean when I say like chaos momentum of it's not trying to just like latch on and win the ball off of a center back, but it's sort of forcing a series of passes that get increasingly erratic to the point where there's a turnover.
And I'd even say this is how the first goal comes about, right? Isn't it? Luis Suarez cuts off Victor Wanyama attempting to play what would have been a sensible ball back to, I believe, Sanchez, playing it back to a centre-back to maybe recycle. Suarez doesn't let Wanyama recycle and Barcelona win the ball back. Yeah, that's where the first goal starts, right?
And like it's a blink and you miss it moment because Suarez isn't like he's close enough that he could maybe step and try to win that ball, but instead it's just a quick little like two-step shuffle, but it's a very deliberate two-step shuffle to cut off that back pass, and it forces again that kind of erratic pass forward.
Yep. And then Barcelona, I want to talk about that first goal now because there's a lot going on with that first Barcelona goal.
There sure is.
After Suarez has forced that turnover, the ball ends up with Leo Messi in sort of a central midfieldish area. And he ends up playing that ball that's in inside Kieran Trippier, right? It's between Trippier and the centre-back.
Ruthless.
For Jordi Alba to run onto. But I think it's the more we watched it, the better that ball became, right? Because it's all about the timing from Leo Messi.
Well, first off, it's all about the fact that he rides, I think, 2 different challenges from Son Heung-min, and then Harry Winks comes over, but then he backs off, and basically Leo Messi backs off 3 central midfielders for Tottenham. And
do they all give up a little bit?
A little bit. I think your theory, which I'm going to agree with, was that maybe they're just like, don't let him dribble through the middle. That's all we're trying to do. If you can't win the ball, don't let him dribble.
So if you don't win it, then just back off 5 yards away from him and put your body between Leo Messi and the goal.
Yeah, but all of that was almost the worst thing that could have happened for Tottenham, because that buys time for Jordi Alba to make that like sprinting run down the left side, and more importantly, it allows time for Kieran Trippier to spot that run, recognize that nobody has covered it, so then he starts to shift wide to try to cover that run. And it's almost in that moment, like you could see Leo Messi waiting, and as soon as Trippier turns to kind of go outside, that's when the ball gets played in between him and Toby Alderweireld.
It's no coincidence, right? I think Messi's really waiting, because he probably could, because it's Leo Messi, he probably could have just hit a big looping ball that got it to Alba on the touchline. But then Alba's got to beat a fullback, right? So instead, he waits for Trippier to be tempted out there and then puts it in the space that Trippier has just vacated so that Alba can run behind and receive it the other side. It's so well timed, so clever.
But it continues that sort of tradition of causing chaos, because as soon as Trippier turns to go to Jordi Alba, you can tell that's not what he wants to be doing. It's not like that was a plan of, as soon as their player is wide open in the attacking third, you probably go cover him. It sort of is clearly, I need to go get to him. So then he turns, and now he's not in the position he wants to be. He's having to transition quickly, and then that ball is played in. And so then if you're the defender, is it now I try to make a play on the ball, or I try to track the runner? And you just start building up that indecision.
Both.
He did.
I think he ended up looking at it's almost not his fault, because he's the victim of a crime by Leo Messi, essentially. And he ends up sort of spinning around, trying to get ahead at it, and the ball just goes beyond him, and Alba's in on goal up against Hugo Lloris.
Well, that's the thing, is that it's not just him who's fooled by this one. It's also definitely Hugo Lloris, who is off his line way farther than he needs to be, which makes me think that maybe he had been told, if you have the opportunity, come out and maybe like command.
Play right back?
Yeah, exactly. No, but I think it was more like maybe if Barcelona tried to play through, be quick off your line to pick up those through balls. So he comes out and, I mean, maybe thinks he's going to get to this one, but I think it's also a little bit of disguise from Jordi Alba that really causes problems.
Isn't it almost a no-look pass?
It basically is, is that he shapes like he's going to shoot, and then he sort of, as he plays that ball, he's looking away from the pass. So I think nobody sees that square pass coming, except for Felipe Coutinho, who has dropped off. Toby Alderweireld sprints back to try to cover that kind of ball across the 6-yard box.
So he's bought the Alba fake as well, right? Alderweireld definitely thinks, Lloris is off his line, Alba's going to shoot, I can be the slide tackle guy on the line.
Exactly. It's either shoot or like he's going to try to do that driven pass like to the 6-yard box, across the 6-yard box. Somebody will be there, so I'm going to get there to cut that out. He accelerates, he being Toby Alderweireld, accelerates to get there, but that leaves Coutinho, who
he was marking him, right?
Yeah, and I think this is the Barcelona thing of, I know where this ball's going. And Coutinho stops and waits, and that ball comes back to him, and then it's that first-time shot, and it's a really well-taken shot because it just hugs the inside of the post.
I think it was quite a narrow angle he had to fire it through. Right? Have you seen Solo, the new Solo movie?
I have not.
Oh, well, I'm sure you can imagine there's a lot of him trying to turn vehicles sideways and go through narrow gaps.
Of course.
Of course.
Yeah.
It was kind of like that. Yeah.
So did they explain why he's like 5 inches shorter? I forget.
That's not the important part.
Right,
that's
cool.
not the important part.
It's weird how
the important thing is that Felipe Coutinho is Han Solo.
All right, perfect. I take that casting. That'd be fine with me.
All right, so that was early on, right? It was like second or third minute.
Second
I didn't
minute,
write the minutes down. About 20-something minutes later,
26 in the 28th minute.
Barcelona are at it again, and it is 2-0. Talk us through this goal.
Sure. I mean, it's a Spurs giveaway, and again, it's Luis Suarez.
It is.
This game, I don't know if, like, maybe, again, I'm not just, like, I don't watch Barcelona so regularly or Luis Suarez so regularly. This game, I think I said to you, or just said out loud to no one, Luis Suarez is going to be a coach. Because throughout this game, I just saw him constantly talking to people and adjusting and telling people to step and telling people to drop. And in this...
And listening.
And listening. Because in this situation, you can see his awareness. Because he is basically... He is between Harry Winks, who's central, and Son Heung-min in terms of where he is in relation to the touchline. But Son Heung-min is about 40 yards upfield and is making a run back to be a support option for Davinson Sanchez. So if you imagine Davinson Sanchez standing there, he's got Harry Winks in front of him, he's got Luis Suarez a little bit to his left, and then he's got Son Heung-min up the field. Son Heung-min coming back, and Harry Winks says, like, no, stay up the field. clearly trying to stretch them.
Yep.
Luis Suarez sees him say that, sees Son stop, and as a result makes a play on the ball. And I think because he tries to make that play, Harry Winks shapes to block Luis Suarez off. He tries to make it a little bit harder for Suarez to run around and make the interception, but then Harry Winks can't make a play on the ball, so it rolls right past him, and it rolls to the feet of, I believe, Arthur. Thank you.
Yeah, picks it up.
Arthur sounds like a weird name. It's got to be Arthur. Yeah, Arthur picks it up, and away they go.
So this is one of those weird things where we went back and forth in the studio about this, whether this was Harry Winks' fault.
And it is Arthur.
Or not. It is Arthur. Whether this was Harry Winks' fault or not. And I think in the end, what he's done by just putting a body between Suarez and the ball and letting the ball run, he's just done the best he can do in a very bad situation.
100%,
right?
yeah.
It's Suarez, I want to say genius, in terms of like cutting down angles and reading what's going to happen, is what's made this so difficult for Harry Winks. And then Harry Winks is just stuck with this, I guess I'll do this, try and not make this a disaster type thing. Yeah,
I think that's totally fair. I think it's also worth noting, not necessarily to single out Davinson Sanchez, but he did have some very bad passes.
He did.
And it felt like Tottenham's sort of couldn't find their way through on a lot of occasions at the times they did, which we'll talk about. It felt like it was much more of a counter than it was a consistent game plan. And I think with that, they started to do slow passing, a lot of time on the ball, and then eventually trying to play direct. Or they were slow, and then played a very obvious ball. And here, Davinson Sanchez telegraphs, I'm playing this ball to Harry Winks. And he does so like after it's become clear that Son Heung-min won't be there for that pass. So it's got to go to Harry Winks, and everybody kind of converges on that spot. And it just felt like Tottenham, in that opening first 30, 40 minutes, were just a little too obvious with the ball, this being a prime example.
I also think this goes to my theory of left-footed centre-backs playing left centre-back.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So Jan Vertonghen was one of the many Tottenham Hotspur players who were injured, right? So just to give the list, Vertonghen's injured, Dele Alli's injured, Christian Eriksen's injured, Moussa Dembele's injured, and Serge Aurier's injured.
So some players in the offseason.
Yeah, I mean, this is definitely, Stu Holden made that point on TNT, right?
He did.
This is a problem for Spurs. This is where it started to bite them. But when you have it's really key that your defenders make good passes out of the back. When you have, I'm pretty confident Sanchez is right-footed, not left-footed.
I mean, it looked it today.
But
or it looked like he was left-footed but trying to play with his right foot.
Jan Vertonghen is not only a comfortable left-footed left centre-back, he's also just the best passer in Spurs' central defensive core, right?
But I'd say to your point, this is where I would agree with you, because if he is left-footed, whoever that centre-back might be, that ball to Son it's on a little bit more, because you can like move it over to your right or to your left foot from your right foot, and then you kind of hit that bending ball that goes down the line. It goes around Suarez, but into the path of Son, and then you're away. If you're right-footed, you've basically got to try to put it over the top, and then you're lofting a ball into like into midfield area where it can easily be cut out, or you've got to kind of ping this ball.
Sounds like a familiar thing from this game.
Yep.
Yeah. The second part of what you just said.
Yeah.
So this leads to a goal, right? It's picked off by Artur, and then away we go. Talk me through it, Taylor.
Yeah, I mean, again, it is Jordi Alba like basically causing problems because he goes wide. Again, there's some people being stretched out, but really it comes down to another great ball. Again from Leo Messi, it's chipped in for Luis Suarez.
Yes.
He chests it back over. Cleverness from Luis Suarez. Coutinho, I thought, volleyed this and it was saved. We watched it a bunch of times, and no, he basically goes to hit like the side volley, only gets it with the outside of his right foot, so it goes straight up in the air. You can see everybody react like, oh, I can't believe he missed that, including his teammates.
Don't the Spurs fans do a hey?
Oh, yeah,
like
they do.
Sarcastic cheer.
And like Suarez puts his hands on his head, everybody reacts. The only person who doesn't look dismayed is Felipe Coutinho, who spins around and then hits a volleyed pass to Rakitic, who hits it one time, and it's a perfect volley.
So thumbs up to Coutinho for not getting his head down after whiffing on the first one.
Yeah.
Some quick thinking.
Yeah,
right?
It definitely was. I mean, he definitely saved himself, and nobody will remember that whiff. It will be remembered as a textbook perfect volley from Ivan Rakitic.
So you mentioned Jordi Alba. Was he involved in this goal?
It was more of that as soon as the situation was on. It was a bombing forward run from Jordi Alba, and it was then that sort of Kieran Trippier, do I go wide? Do I stay narrow? And it's sort of, again, as soon as you're making defenders think about other things aside from their primary obligation, they're not thinking about what they're supposed to be doing.
Can we talk about Jordi Alba a second then? Because I think this was a huge problem for Spurs.
Yep.
It seems like they didn't really have a plan to deal with Alba's overlapping runs. And it seems like if you've ever seen Barcelona play in the last few years, you should know that that's coming.
The only two things I can figure are that either maybe possibly because we kept seeing Lucas Moura and Son Heung-min when it was him on the left, if it was Eric Lamela out there, we kept seeing them stay high and then come very central.
Yes.
And all I can figure is that maybe they were trying to keep numbers forward so that those fullbacks felt the inclination to stay back. I think Nelson Semedo, who started at right back, he maybe did to some extent, but Jordi Alba certainly did not.
Yeah.
The other thing I can figure is maybe they just thought, fine, we'll give them the channel and we'll let them cross. We'll back ourselves to win crosses over Messi and Suarez.
Yep.
But then you're kind of forgetting that that's not what Barcelona's game is going to be. If you give them space, they're not just going to be like, well, I guess I have to cross it. They're going to dribble at your defense until you get pulled out of position.
And fake and then cut back and create things. But I think we lean the same way. My guess is that it wasn't so much about Moura and Son staying forward to try and pin back fullbacks. I think the key part is them coming in field to defend. And I think Spurs were trying to have essentially 5 midfielders in the middle, right? So Son, Lamela was definitely man-marking Sergio Busquets for the most part. Lucas Moura, like 3 central, and then Winks and Wanyama underneath. I think they were trying to clog it up.
That makes sense.
So that Artur and Rakitic and Busquets and those guys couldn't work the ball through the middle. And then, like you said, but the end result is still the same, right? That you sacrifice the channel.
Yeah.
But then when you've got Messi slicing balls through to Alba, you've sacrificed too much.
Yeah, a little bit.
It's always a trade-off in soccer, right? If you try and get numbers in one area, you have to give up numbers in another area.
Yeah, but actually, now that you say that, you're probably right that it was them just trying to make sure that nothing came through the middle of the field, they being Tottenham. But with that in mind, Mauricio Pochettino is going to be furious, especially on that first goal, because they executed. They stopped Leo Messi, they slowed him down, they got bodies on him, but because they failed to win, they backed off. Then you give him time, which I'm going to guess is exactly what they didn't want him to have, and then he finds that pass.
Do you want to talk more Barcelona goals, or do you want to do this chronologically and talk about the brief moment of hope that Spurs had?
Oh, I say let's go to the Spurs goal, to the Harry Kane goal, because I think we were trying to figure out, like, was this game closer than we thought it was? Was it, like, was 4-2 a deserving scoreline? Should it have been closer? Why weren't we more, like, hyped when it seemed like maybe the comeback was on?
Why didn't we believe that Spurs were going to pull this back?
And I think the answer is because there were only a few occasions when we saw Spurs play fast, when they were able to move the ball, and in those sequences, you got this goal, you got some decent shooting opportunities, but the rest of the time, including Eric Lamela's goal, I'll jump out of sequence and say their second goal, it's a deflected shot from outside the box, which feels like the last thing they wanted to be doing. But for this Harry Kane goal, when they were able to play fast and catch Barcelona out a little bit, that's when they had success.
And wasn't it, so we talked earlier about how most of what Spurs were doing was just looking for passes and playing slow. If my memory serves me correctly, because my notes obviously don't, this starts with just a quick throw from Hugo Lloris, and they catch Barcelona in transition with a quick throw.
I can't remember what the Barcelona sequence was that led to it, but it was good enough that there was a highlight of what happened. And so I think that's important to say, just because then you've got Barcelona sending numbers forward, so now they're backing off, they're trying to get into shape, and I think usually that would be okay, but here, to your point, is Lloris gets that ball, throws it very quickly, and then it's Lamela, Lucas Moura, Lamela again.
A little bit Tim Howard against Algeria.
Yeah. It's just it's a good 40, 50-yard ball out, and then it's a quick, 1-2 sequence, basically, that springs Lamela.
Over defenders' heads?
Yeah, it's a few flicks and tricks in there, but it's fast, and that's the difference. And then they're away, Lamela finds Harry Kane. Harry Kane does really well to draw on defenders, to cut back, to send Nelson Semedo to the ground, and still gets that shot off. Classic
Harry Kane. I know I've said this a million times on this show, but Harry Kane is not going to beat you for pace.
No.
But he's going to cut and move and hold on to the ball, and eventually he's going to open up enough space for him to just take a touch and then shoot, and that ball is going to be on target.
But again, it was so fast that with one quick highlight, you could hear in the highlight, because you still get the crowd noise, you can hear them all doing the and then when it cuts back, it's Eric Lamela maybe 30 yards from Barcelona's goal. So that's how quickly that counterattack took place.
I feel bad for Eric Lamela. I feel like he really put in a good effort attacking-wise and stuck to his task in terms of closing down Busquets, but the rest of the game plan didn't help him.
Well, I think though he's kind of a victim of his own frustration, because in the 43rd minute, he's trying to get to Busquets and he leaves an arm out and basically whacks him in the back of the head and picks up a yellow card. And I think the commentators pointed out a couple of times in the second half, there were moments when he wanted to go in a little bit more physically, but knew there was a risk that means a second yellow. Yeah. So I think if he hadn't done what I would say was a foolish little arm to the back of the ahead for Busquets, maybe then he's able to be a bit more aggressive and cause more problems in the second half.
Fair enough. And as it stands, Spurs' lead only lasted, 2-3
Well, they didn't
minutes?
have a lead. They're 1-goal margin. Yeah.
Spurs, if we're sticking with the Star Wars theme, Spurs' New Hope only lasted 2 or 3 minutes, and before you know it, it's 3-1 to Barcelona.
Yeah. And it's very similar. It's Leo Messi with the ball. He has a little bit of time. No one really wants to step to him. It's the thing we've seen before. Nobody wants to be the one to get posterized by Messi. So everyone stands off a little bit. One of the only people who isn't standing is Jordi Alba, who's bombing down the left flank again. He finds that gap between Son and Kieran Trippier again, and then that ball gets played out wide. Messi makes the delayed run. Luis Suarez with a very clever dummy. Messi's there to tap it in.
Great stuff from Suarez.
It's a prolonged one, too. Yeah.
So Suarez really should get an assist. This is one of those weird things where it's almost like you deserve the assist for not touching it. You know what I mean? But
I think so.
It's not going to show up on the sheet. I would also say this goal proves that the problem isn't that Lucas Moura didn't want to get back. Because now it's Son on the right side, and now it's Son not covering either. It says to me that this is definitely Spurs' game plan as opposed to an individual failure.
And if you want to keep that going, just to wrap it all up, then Sissoko comes on. Sissoko gets the ball out wide.
Does he play on the right as well?
He gets pressured by Jordi Alba. Jordi Alba dispossesses. Jordi Alba drives, plays the ball central. Luis Suarez dummies. Leo Messi puts it home for the fourth goal. Really lovely disguised shot from Leo Messi for the fourth.
It is. Oh, just to stick on the fourth a second, I have a bit of a problem with this goal. It's, to me, the reason Leo
and you're
Messi...
not wrong,
The reason Leo Messi is 100% unmarked is that Toby Alderweireld has gone and taken a throw-in over in the left-back area. I don't know if Ben Davies just can't throw it very far, or I know Alderweireld was in a bit of a battle with Messi that ended in a Spurs throw. Maybe Alderweireld was so proud that he'd won that battle that he wanted to take the throw, but he took it and then he basically stayed at left-back, right? So when this ball is turned over and comes back, Messi's literally, and I mean the word literally, standing unmarked in the middle of Tottenham's penalty area.
It's not great. It's not a great look for Tottenham now.
There is no reason for centre-backs to take throw-ins unless you're in a back three. That's the only excuse. Or if your fullback's broken his wrist.
So those are all fair. Or if they can't stop lifting their foot when they throw, we've experienced that.
Oh, we have. Naming no names.
Yeah. But I mean, and then again, as the TNT folks pointed out, Leo Messi hits the post twice. This could have been way worse for Tottenham. In the end, it finishes 4-2.
All right. We've got a couple more games that we're going to touch on today's show.
We sure do.
But first, today's show is sponsored by The Athletic.
Yeah, it is.
I didn't want to say it until I'd opened the app.
As is tradition.
So The Athletic is back to sponsor us for October. We've been scrolling through, and if I'm honest, there's only one story caught my eye.
Oh, yeah?
And it was written by Snaves. Adam Whittaker Snavely with his Premier League panic rankings. They are back and they are glorious.
I feel like maybe you find them glorious because your team is not in the full panic area of the table, whereas my team decidedly is.
So let's give the spoiler alert. Man United #1 in the panic rankings, and their panic level, which is the description of how things are going, is in all caps, and it's written by Jose Mourinho.
It is. Well, I think
not really, but...
Well, I think his part was just italicized, right? Then the all caps is Adam Stavely being furious that a certain somebody in Manchester United is no longer posting adorable social media pictures, and he blames that on Jose Mourinho.
I mean, that could be the root of the whole problem.
I think it might could be. It might could be, Daryl. Yes, that is always hilarious. That is always a great read. It's always a good way to look at the Premier League table as it currently stands.
It's also a weirdly reminder that it's just the Premier League. It's not actually all that serious.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, except it's the greatest league in the world and it's the most important thing in the history of humanity. But other than that, I also enjoyed Michael Lewis's article about Derek Etienne Jr.
Yeah.
And sort
Richmond's
of,
own.
Yeah. And his family background, which includes some former Richmond Kickers players.
Did you get coached by his dad or his uncle?
Both.
Both?
Yes.
Right.
Very briefly by his dad, basically when his uncle wasn't available, is how that would work. But it was interesting just to hear,
did they do Parent Trap style?
They could have. I believe they're identical. Or close. I think Derek Etienne Sr. had a goatee, and maybe Daryl did not. I forget how that worked.
So he's the evil one.
But I think they both drove troopers at the time, and maybe they were just slightly different colors. It was a very confusing situation. But it did make me feel sort of to paraphrase a Jim Gaffigan joke, You didn't even try on me. Like when it was just like not the Etienne's, but more so like I think Etienne or Gaffney was saying it to God, and I'm like, for purposes of this, I'm reading this article, and it's like, oh, his dad played professional soccer, his uncle plays professional soccer, his grandfather played professional soccer, his sister, and I was just like, I didn't even have a chance.
My favorite part of the story was I can't remember which family member it was describing the Etienne Classic.
Yeah,
apparently when they all get together for a family gathering.
I believe that was Derek, senior, describing that one.
They all play soccer in an Etienne Classic.
Yep.
Like I don't have enough family members who play soccer to do that. I think that would be glorious.
Yes, and it sounds pretty competitive. So I would pay to see that. I think they can televise that one.
If you're a New York Red Bulls fan, I think you'll enjoy that story. If you're just a fan of good writing, you'll enjoy the Premier League panic rankings. There's loads of other great stories on The Athletic. We can't list them all. We're giving away the content for free.
Exactly.
We want people to subscribe to The Athletic instead, but don't pay full price.
I was going to say we can give it away like almost half for free.
Yeah, don't pay full price. Get 40% off if you go to theathletic.com/TSS-October. Theathletic.com/TSS-October.
You've been working on your jingles? You got one?
Someone suggested that it should be TS-Socktober.
See, I thought about that, but this is where I said the other day that then you got to explain TSS October, but without the K, and it becomes kind of confusing.
Yeah, okay. So just go to theathletic.com/TSS October. Yeah. We'll put the link in the show notes just in case the jingle didn't work.
Have a better name, October, then we'd be able to jingle this more.
All right, 2 more games to talk about. 2 more games we want to talk about because we've seen some of them, and weirdly, they're both in Moscow.
That's weird. I didn't put that together. You're right.
So let's start with...
And either played on turf or played on very bright grass. It's one or the other.
Should we start with CSKA Moscow?
Sure.
And their 1-0 win over Real Madrid.
Let's do.
So it's Everton loanee Vlasic who scores in the second minute for CSKA Moscow.
It's a recurring theme today.
But this is really all about Toni Kroos, isn't it?
I think so, yeah.
Toni Kroos's weird through ball for a CSKA striker.
I really enjoyed this because I have no particular love for Toni Kroos, but when he hits this ball, I watched it, and I think when we watched it together, I said, I don't know, I think Varane could have done better, and Daryl just sort of looked at me and didn't say anything, and then we both looked back at the screen, we watched 3 or 4 replays, and then I said, yeah, that's pretty much all Toni Kroos.
So let's, if you haven't seen this, I would recommend just finding the highlights. It's very early in the highlights because it's very early in the game. The ball is nodded to Toni Kroos.
It's not a highlight for Toni Kroos. See what I did there? See what I did? Yeah.
I do see what you did there. I think it's Nacho nods it to him. And Toni Kroos takes this big swipe of a volley that just goes almost bounces into the floor and then bounces into the path of Vlasic. And it took us we're not even sure what he was trying to do, but after several watches, we have a working theory.
Yeah, we do.
We have a hypothesis.
What it looks like, because as it's being headed to him, you can see him looking around and sort of evaluating all his options.
As he always is, right? Yeah. That's kind of how Tony K plays, right? He's always looking for the pass. Yeah.
Tony K, maybe you do have a particular affinity for him. But I think, is looking and starts to shape like he is going to try to hit this crossfield on the volley all the way to the other side of the field to Dani Carvajal.
I think so too, because it's on. It's open. And if you are Toni Kroos and you're looking around, that's the pass you would see. That's also the body shape you would take to play this pass is the initial body shape that he takes.
Yes.
Yeah?
And then I can't tell if it's just that maybe he misjudges the spin on the ball and recognizes he's not going to be able to hit it the way he wants to. Maybe he just doesn't hit it the way he wants to. But either way, I think at the last second he decides, oh, this volley isn't on. I'm just going to try to play it back to the feet of Keylor Navas, which in and of itself is a very dangerous decision because it's not like there's nobody there. Like he's playing that through 3 or 4 players and a CSKA player who's very close. So I think he would have had to hit this inch perfectly. And even then, it's a volleyed pass shot to the feet of Keylor Navas. It's putting a lot of pressure on him. But it doesn't matter because it doesn't even get there in the first place.
It doesn't get there. I think the reason it doesn't get there is because it's half a crossfield pass and half a turnaround and pass it back volley to Navas.
And 100% hit straight into the ground?
Yes, and in the end it's 100% volleyed straight into the ground so that the pace comes off of it, but just enough pace to send Vlasic through.
Yes.
Yeah. And then Vlasic does really well from that moment, right? Because Varane does try. Varane tries to cut this out.
Yeah. If Vlasic isn't there putting that pressure on, I think maybe Varane just kind of gets a limb to it, gets some sort of his body to it, and maybe just puts it out for a throw-in or maybe a corner. But either way, I think that little bit of pressure, it means that Varane just has to react a little bit more. He has to worry about the presence of another player as opposed to just, okay, I just got to cut this pass out. And because of that, I think he's not able to make a clean play on the ball.
Yep.
And that's why if you watch the live stream or just like the regular view, it does look like it almost megs him. But I think that's because he's being forced to scramble.
Yeah.
It's probably a little bit of a weird spin, and he's got that pressure on. So yeah, in the end, it's definitely Toni Kroos.
And then the sort of weird irony of this is then it's a Spanish team up against a Russian team.
Yep.
It's at the Luzhniki Stadium,
Yep.
just like that World Cup round of 16 game.
Yeah.
And it's the Spanish team with all of the ball and the Russian team with Igor Akinfeev in goal with everybody behind the ball.
Yes.
And that's how it plays out for the rest of the game. So actually, we didn't watch the whole thing. We sort of jumped through a bunch of highlights, but every time we stopped, we saw pretty much 11 CSKA players behind the ball, ready to defend.
And this game was maybe even worse than that because I think in that game, at least Spain scored. It was just an own goal from Russia.
Yeah.
But in this one, no goals for Real Madrid, a 1-0 win for CSKA.
No goals for Real Madrid in their last 3 games either.
Now it's worth noting that you and I have not watched a lot of Real Madrid this season. So we're not trying to claim any level of expertise here. But what I will say is if you look at this Madrid lineup, it is definitely affected by injuries. We've got Isco injured, Sergio Ramos injured, Marcelo injured. I think I said Sergio.
It's good.
Thank you.
I know it's a cut eyebrow with Ramos, so unless it was Isco that cut his eyebrow.
You never know.
If it's that, then he's good.
Yeah. But Marcelo and Bale also out. Luka Started this game on the bench.
So that was the Modric one was a decision by Lopetegui to rest up Luka Modric a little bit. Very noticeable that they broke glass in case of emergency and Modric came on the field.
But with all that said, and I genuinely don't mean this as disrespect to any of the players who did start this, but when you think Madrid in the Champions League, this is not the lineup you think of.
Yeah.
And it is Reguilon, I think it is starting at left back instead of Marcelo. That's not a name either one of us was familiar with. Nacho in there instead of Sergio Ramos, Ceballos, Asensio, Vasquez. I mean, that's not the Madrid.
Asensio I would now possibly put in a Madrid starting 11. But
possibly,
weirdly in this one he's sort of one of the key players, whereas normally he's the third or fourth most important player.
Yeah,
right?
Fair. But I think if you go back to this time last season and it's Ronaldo, Benzema, you've got Gareth Bale on the bench, you've got all the names we said that were injured starting, and I know that you could chalk that up to injury, but in much the same way that we were critical of Tottenham for not making the kind of big name signings that maybe they needed to strengthen or the squad signings that they needed to strengthen, here Madrid as well. Once you're missing 4 or 5 key players and you don't have those replacements, you look at the bench as well, aside from Vinicius Jr., Thibaut Courtois, it's a lot of players, and I guess Luka Modric, as we mentioned, it's a lot of players who haven't quite proven that pedigree of, we can perform for Real Madrid week in, week out.
So what's our take? Is this sort of a rebuilding year for Real Madrid, and a rebuilding year when you have some injuries, an away game in Moscow is the type of game that you can lose?
I think that when you are Real Madrid and Florentino Perez, you probably never want to say that you're in a rebuilding period because that puts you in a position of vulnerability.
It's constant dominance and nothing else, and nobody say anything. Yeah.
Exactly. And so maybe, though, if you were looking at this if this were a different team and it's a new manager brought in under somewhat contentious circumstances, by far your biggest player moving to another club, not bringing in that many replacements, you've brought in, a 17-year-old who we don't know if he's going to be able to perform consistently for them yet. We expect he will be, but not right now. It definitely feels like a rebuilding squad.
All right, and so there you go. 1-0 defeat for Real Madrid.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if we've already mentioned this, but that's also 3 games in a row in which they failed to score. I looked at some stats today on Karim Benzema as well. 6 games, no goals, no assists, no shots on goal for Karim Benzema.
Not great. But, I mean, and that's probably a lack of, maybe with the injuries, he doesn't get the service maybe he's used to. But it's also the case that once you find yourself in these situations, at the very end, Rafael Varane had the header that I guess Igor Akinfeev said he fouled people to get that header. That resulted in the red card for Akinfeev.
Yep.
But, in another game...
He argued so hard he got 2 yellows.
Yes, he did. But in another game, I think Varane scores that. Or if that's Sergio Ramos, that's absolutely in the back of the net. A last-minute header? Come on now.
Yeah.
That's Sergio Ramos' bread and butter. That's what he was made for.
Also coming off the bench in this game was, I forgot his name, Mariano, the Dominican Republican striker. He, I believe, hits the post or the bar. I just want to bring his name up because that's another one who you don't quite think of him as quite Real Madrid level. Really, I want to bring his name up to reference the Cooligans.
Yep.
Have you heard what they've been calling him? DR7.
I like it.
That's pretty good.
I like
right?
it a lot.
It's pretty
That's
good.
well done. We're stealing that. That's ours now.
But yeah, well done to CSKA Moscow. 1-0 win over Real Madrid.
It's pretty impressive.
But teams can go to Moscow and win,
Yeah.
especially if they have Weston McKennie.
You are right, my
so
friend.
Schalke went to Lokomotiv Moscow and won 1-0, 88th minute header from Weston McKennie. He won the game for Schalke.
He did, and I have to say, our friend Daniel sent me a text right before we started recording that was just like all the Reddit comments under that one highlight.
Yeah.
And several times we were referenced as maybe we were going to be... I'll spare the terminology.
Friendly?
It's not. But we are very excited about Weston McKennie is the gist of the conversation. So thank you to Scoop BB on Reddit for that one.
Oh, these are the Redditors who assumed we'd be excited.
Yes, and
Correctly
also
assumed.
and also thank you to, I believe it was Hexables who responded to that one. It wasn't a criticism. It was just like, yeah, justifiably so. They're very excited about him, using other words. And I think Hexables, that user, said, I mean, they are an American soccer podcast focusing on American players.
Yeah.
It makes sense that they would be excited about a game winner in the Champions League.
I'm so up for this. I'm almost a Weston McKennie header.
That's really well said.
Yeah.
Because that's kind of what it comes down to. It's not that he makes like a really disguised run. It's not a master set piece theater. It's just that he jumps, I would say, at least 3 feet off the ground. He out jumps a couple different players to really just win this one in the air. And
that ball is aimed for Naldo.
Yes.
I'm pretty sure, because Naldo is coming in just behind him, but Weston McKennie gets there first.
Yeah, and it looks on one replay like maybe he's using one of the defenders there for leverage, one of the Lokomotiv defenders for leverage. He's not. He just jumps straight up, and that defender backs into him, and he does really well to adjust and still get the power behind the header and the direction to put it down, put it on frame, put it in the net.
All right, makes me excited to see him in a US national team shirt.
Plus, he had an incredibly choreographed goal celebration with Salif Saneh.
He did.
And I think my favorite part about it in retrospect is that, as the commentators pointed out, his first goal for Schalke, I believe, is either his first goal from open play. Maybe his first Champions League goal. Either way,
definitely his first Champions League
He was so excited that I think he forgot that he had a choreographed goal celebration.
Yes.
And so Naldo had to be like, hey, go do your thing. And Saneh was just waiting there with the handout until McKennie came back. So I like that he was so enthusiastic in his goal scoring that he forgot that he had worked on his goal scoring celebration.
Naldo's like, you spent hours on this when you probably should have been working on passing. You should definitely do it now you got time. One extra interesting McKennie thing is his position.
Yeah.
He has another new position for Schalke. Yeah, so in the first half, it looked like a 4-2-3-1, and Weston McKennie played the number 10 attacking midfielder role.
Yeah, and that's the Richmond Fire Department coming to put out our excitement about Weston McKennie, I think. They're worried. It's too hot in here. It's too hot.
That is interesting to me because we've talked a lot about how the US doesn't have a person playing in that position. The US men's national team does not have a number 10 in that role. Not that McKennie is suddenly going to be the new Claudio Reyna, because they're not the same type of player. But he did look like a guy who could connect. Again, we didn't see the whole thing, right?
I'm just saying, I never saw Claudio Reyna jump that high. Just throwing that out there. Claudio Reyna, I love you. I don't know if you can do that.
But this is exciting to me that McKennie was entrusted with this role and seems did pretty well with it.
Yeah. I mean, especially since we had the conversation the other day about how do you get, say if it is going to be Michael Bradley starting instead of Will Trapp, if we think they're going to go that route, how do you get everybody in there? Maybe it is Weston McKennie a little bit further forward as the more advanced midfielder. And maybe it'll be him carrying the load, because the other news we heard today, Christian Pulisic did not play for Borussia Dortmund against Monaco.
Yep.
Either his leg has been amputated, according to Scuffed. I know that was joking, but we don't really know the severity. We know there's a calf muscle problem.
We know it's a calf muscle problem. We know, apparently, according to a translation from a Dortmund release, that it's some sort of torn muscle fibre, which I think has got spun out into all different stories, from ruptured calf to just a quick strain. So essentially what we're saying is we don't know.
Yeah. Because, I mean, it's worth noting here, like, just a quick reminder that when you pull your hamstring, you've torn something. You've torn a muscle, like, in the hamstring or the hamstring
but that's
itself.
not as bad as it sounds,
well,
right?
Yeah, but it's still like, it's like pulling a hamstring is tearing, so then if you've, like, torn the muscle fiber, that might be pulling it, but so that might be, like, a strain.
Is a pull just a small tear, basically? I think as opposed to a big tear?
I believe it's the other way around. I think pulling it is the tear, but, like, a strain is a lesser tear, so maybe he strained the calf versus pulled the calf. We don't know. I'm sure we will find out in the next few hours.
All we can do is cross our fingers and hope that the fibers of his calf interweave again.
Or is he actually 100% healthy and they just didn't want him to go on national team duty because he regrets his choice to represent the United States, Daryl?
How dare you? How dare you?
Someone out there somewhere is frantically writing an article about this.
All right, so we know there was a lot of other Champions League action, but unfortunately, that is all we managed to see. I'm sure Liverpool fans are probably quite happy we're not talking about the Napoli 1-0 win.
I won't go too much into personal life here, but I will say yesterday my priority was my brother's new child. So that was about where I was, is helping out however I could. So yes, a new Rockwell human took precedent over Champions League yesterday.
I think you need a better name than new Rockwell human.
Yeah, I mean, they're working on it. And it did give me an excuse not to watch Manchester United draw. So that's good. I'll take that.
I'll be honest, I haven't watched any of that game because I saw 0-0 and I kind of thought, I know what this game looks like. I don't want to waste any of my eye time on it.
As far as I understand it, if you want a good representation of that game, there's a GIF out there of Eric Bailly shooting. Just search Eric Bailly shot, maybe Valencia to help you narrow it down, and then enjoy yourself.
Okay, I will do that. Coming up for the rest of the week, we have got tomorrow night, Thursday, 7:30 Eastern kickoff on Fox Sports 2.
24 hours from now.
24 hours from now. It's the US women's national team against the Mexican women's national team in the CONCACAF Championship. Also, World Cup qualifying.
Yeah.
So we're going to be here in office. We're going to watch it. We'll have a review show for you after full time. So Thursday night, expect US women's national team review.
Expect it.
Also this week, Top Draw Soccer Show. Last week's episode was very, very good. It was Travis and
I've heard mixed things.
Have you really?
No. It's just that I wasn't involved, so that's how it has to be.
I'm immodestly saying that I think it was a good episode. It was Travis and I talking about young Yanks abroad. We answered listener questions on that topic. Taylor, this week, you and Travis will be talking homegrown players.
Yeah, we will. So if you have questions about homegrown players, who they might be, how it works, who the ones to keep an eye on are in the future.
So you're covering like the system and the ins and outs of that weird regulations of homegrown, but also specific homegrown players. You take questions on all of that.
Indeed.
So we'll put a link in the show notes to the Top Draw Soccer Show, which is our other show that we produce for topdrawsoccer.com. The link to the digital mailbag will be in the show notes to today's episode.
Hooray.
All right. Taylor Rockwell, thank you for taking the time to talk to me today.
Yeah, right back at you, buddy.
Listeners, thank you for listening, and we will talk to you again tomorrow after the USA versus Mexico.